you clearly raise your hand and then state your name very clearly in a loud enough voice where Christine and I and the presenter can hear you. I appreciate that. Okay.
I need to sit in the front.
Any other?
Can I sit at one of those desks?
Okay. All right. Many of you have expressed to me real interest in the two presentations we're doing tonight, which include a radiological program at Site 12. Danielle Janda's the project manager, and she'll be speaking to us about the results of that. And then a removal action that's going on right now in the TI neighborhood at Site 12. Tony Conson will be presenting on that. I will give a quick update on some other sites, Site 27, 31, and 33. And then we'll go over what we're doing in the field and some of the documents that we're tracking. And then we have the regular announcements and Rab business to do. And then we'll have a question and answer period at the end of the evening. Okay, so without further ado, I'd like to call Danielle Janda up. And then we'll begin the first presentation. Yes?
Can you introduce yourself, please?
Oh, I'm sorry. Wow. I guess I've been doing this too long when I forget my own name. I'm Keith Foreman. I'm the Navy's environmental coordinator. I'm called a BRAC environmental coordinator for former Naval Station Treasure Island. Thank you, sir, for helping me out on that. And again, I welcome you here. Danielle, are we ready to start?
Hi everybody, I'm Danielle Janda. I'm the Navy project manager for the radiological scan work that we've been doing in the neighborhood. For people that have lived here, you guys have probably seen some of our detectors and things like that that have been running around. So basically, we found some objects with that radiological scan. I'm going to talk a little bit about, first I want to put kind of some of the numbers that we're going to show you into context, and then I'll go into each and everything that we found with that scan. So first, I think it's really important that everybody understands that radiation is something that we're exposed to every day. So the average person is exposed to about 620 millirem of radiation per year. So millirem is just a unit that expresses radiation dosage. And 620, that's the average of the average person in the US. Depending on where you live or the job that you do, you're actually could be exposed to much more. So for example, people that live in Colorado are exposed to much more than 620 millirem per year because they live closer to the sun and they get more exposure to sun radiation. For example, if you're a flight attendant and you spend more time on planes, then you're also exposed to more radiation. So it's not, you just have to keep these numbers when you hear them into some sort of context. So about half of this radiation that you're exposed to every year, half of it is just from natural sources like the sun or basically the ground that we walk on, things like that, and about half is from man-made sources. And 2% of all of the radiation we're exposed to approximately is from consumer products. And one thing to note, so the Nuclear Regulatory Council, the NRC, they limit members of the public to 100 millirem per year above regular everyday background. So that doesn't mean that if you're exposed to more than 100 millirem per year that you're in danger or anything like that. That's just kind of a general number that really you want to keep below. You don't want any objects that you're exposed to more than 100 millirem per year just to maintain a safe environment. So these are just some examples of everyday sources that were exposed us to radiation. Smoke detectors are very common. Watches and clocks, especially older watches and clocks, usually everything that glows is radioactive material. Glass has natural radioactive material in it. Fertilizer and lots of food that we eat also does. And tobacco is a big product that people use that actually has a lot of radioactive materials in it. So one thing that's really important to understand about radiation dosage is as you get further away from any source, your dosage significantly decreases. So for example, if I'm standing away from an object and I'm being exposed to 1 millirem per hour, when I go 5 feet away, I'm only exposed to 0.04 millirem per hour. And when I go 10 feet away, I'm only exposed to 0.01 millirem per hour. So in order to get a really strong dosage, first of all, you need a really strong source, and you have to be very close to that source. And that's actually one way that they minimize exposure of any kind of workers that works with any kind of radioactive materials. They limit the proximity that people can get to any kind of source. Okay, so the main radioisotope of concern at Treasure Island in general is radium-226. So
No,
radium-226
that's not true.
is a natural occurring element. It occurs at low levels
That's
in
not
all
true.
rocks, soil, water, plants, and animals. And so the general background radiation dosage that we get from the natural radiation in our soil here at Treasure Island is between 0.005 and 0.008 millirem per hour. The radium-226 does not degrade quickly, so it stays in the environment. And the types of radiation that it emits are alpha radiation and gamma rays. So it's kind of important distinction because alpha particles are blocked by the skin, so you can't the only way you can be exposed to alpha radiation is by actually ingesting it or inhaling it. Gamma rays, however, that can actually get through the skin, so that's really what we ended up measuring in the field is gamma radiation. So this is how we detected gamma radiation. We had our gamma detectors. So this would be the detector. You've seen these around the neighborhood, and this is just the motor that we use to make sure that it goes at a steady speed. And this is the technician, and then he's recording all the data on his computer, and we also have it hooked up to a GPS unit. So each measurement is hooked up to an exact location, so we can always go back there and find that location. We covered more than 2.8 million square feet of the surface area, and we collected more than 1.5 million data points.
So if I could have just a quick show of hands, people raise their hand. Who in this room have seen the folks out there doing surveys in their neighborhood? Oh, good, okay. Quite a few people that came tonight, great.
Yeah, and we also, so for areas that these can get through, maybe using the push carts is what we've used in backyards and other areas that are harder to get through, and we also have some handheld instruments. So what we did is we calibrated these detectors so that the technician was warned anytime there was a dosage that's more than 0.01 millirem per hour. So to put that into some perspective, if you were exposed to 0.01 millirem per hour for 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, for 365 days a year, you would be exposed to less radiation than the NRC limit. So that means you'd be exposed to less than your natural background radiation. You'd be exposed to significantly less. So that was our very, very, very conservative threshold that we used to say, okay, there is some radiation here. It could be just from different soil, it could be from rock, or it could be from something that the Navy left there, or we don't know what it is. But that's what that number means. So if the technician was warned that there was the radiation dosage was above this 0.01, or if they were going by and they said, oh, this is background, oh, now it's a little bit higher, it's still below 0.01, it's a little higher, oh, and then it goes to background, then in that case, we'd also take a second look. So a second look, it doesn't mean that we know there's something there, it means we don't know what it is. So we either went into visual observations, so for example, we saw higher radiation dosage and then we saw some gravel, that's what's causing that higher radiation dosage. Or we would find the location and actually dig about 1 cubic feet of soil, take the soil out and scan the soil and see if there's anything there.
So Danielle, I have a question on previous slides. You talk about NRC standards, but the documents all talk about AE standards from 1974. And my question was going to be, why are you using such old standards, 1974 standards, when you have modern NRC standards? You're saying here you are, but the documents don't, they don't cite that. They all cite the AEC standards.
So it's a little important to differentiate between what we're looking at in terms of an environmental cleanup as opposed to what, the .01 is what we used to monitor safety, basically. To see, okay, is there something there that maybe should be taken out or whatever. That's what we use. But the documents that we write, those are more for us to actually get a free release license from any of the properties. I don't know if you want to chime in, but you're kind of comparing two different things, because I don't know what you're actually talking about, but a lot of times you see 1.6 picocuries per gram.
1.7.
Or 1.7. So that's not in milliround, that's a different unit.
It turns out that there's like 3 or 4 of them. It makes it very hard to
Yeah,
compare.
so that's why we're trying to keep it focused on, what I'm talking about is radiation dosage. So picocuries per gram doesn't give you a dosage, it just gives you the concentration of radium.
Yeah, so there's all kinds of different units of measure which are confusing to everybody, our team included, not just folks who don't do this every day, but even to us. So what we've tried to do in this presentation, and from here on forward to communicate more clearly, we're going to keep everything in what the health physicists are telling us really matters, which is dosage. And dosage is in things called millirem per hour or millirem per year. You hear all kinds of other terms that refer to concentration levels or disintegrations per minute or things like that. We're trying to keep everything in dose rates to be mean more to the folks in the neighborhood, because that, as I said, is really what counts.
But then how do you tell when you read a document and it says it's okay to have 4 to 6 degradations per minute, and that's safe, and yet you're talking about picocuries per, I'm even...
Yeah, so it is confusing. So,
But I mean, your documents are different than what you talk about here. So I come here, I understand,
Yes.
I get numbers, I go back, I read the documents, and the numbers that they're using are completely different.
Okay.
And sometimes, page by page, they change.
I understand that that's a challenge. When we talk to the public, when we want to explain things to the public, I think the best way to go is what is our decision to represent everything in terms of dose rates. When you're inside of a technical document, and for those of you who don't know Dale Smith, she's a Rab member, she does an excellent job of reviewing most of our documents and actually commenting on them. In those documents, it's required that we show what lab results were. And when we take soil off and put it to a lab, it doesn't come back in dose rates. That wouldn't make sense. It comes back in concentration, or how much radium is in that soil. So it does take, I hear you, I agree, it takes quite an amount of interpretation if you're going to go between presentations and documents in order to cover that. I'm not sure an easy way to deal with that, because, again, the documents cover things, intermediate steps before we reach conclusions like this that have to involve, for the regulators and so forth, have to involve different units of measure. But it all gets, in the end, when it comes to studying radiation, whether you're the state of California, or whether you're the Navy, or whether you're the United States EPA, it comes down to dose rates. And that's why we've tried to represent this here, so that folks can begin to understand really the thing that matters, which is a dose rate for protecting.